Ron, where are you? Where is Ron right now? You done messed up, Ron.
Ron is right here. Thanks for joining me, everyone. You know, I was feeling a little bit under the weather today. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get a video done, but when I found out the greatest news to come out of Scientology land this year so far, I was like, gosh darn it, we're going to do a live stream and let everybody know. David Miscavige has been officially served as ruled by the magistrate judge, Julie S. Sneed, out of Tampa. This is in the civil lawsuit against David Miscavige by Gawain Baxter, Laura Baxter, and Valeska Paris. They are suing David Miscavige and a handful of other Scientology organizations for trafficking them as children for labor at Scientology's cruise ship, the Free Winds, also on Scientology's flag land base in Clearwater, Florida. Miscavige has been hiding like a cowardly little rat from the process servers in this case for about 10 months now. By the way, there's two other cases he's been hiding from process servers in those cases as well. And I'm curious to know how the ruling in this case might impact his ability to be served in those other cases. But boy, oh boy, is this a big deal. So let me just share this with you. This is a 27-page document. We, of course, are not going to be reading the whole thing, but I just wanted to show you some of the highlights. First of all, just for the record, you can see here, Gawain Baxter, Laura Baxter, and Valeska Paris versus David Miscavige, Church of Scientology, Religious Technology Center, IAS, that's the International Association of Scientologists, Church of Scientology Flag Service Organization, Church of Scientology Flagship Service Organization, otherwise known as the Free Winds. Okay, we're going to skip forward to right here. Bear with me. Okay. Come on now. Okay, good. Here we go. Upon consideration of the amended complaint, the parties' submissions, and the arguments of counsel, the court finds that Miscavige has been properly served with process pursuant to sections 48.181 and 48.161 of the Florida statutes. Nevertheless, the court declines to find Miscavige in default, and instead, Miscavige shall answer or otherwise respond to plaintiff's amended complaint within 21 days of this order as required by Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 12. Okay, so that's just so I didn't bury the lead. Wanted to show it to you right off the bat there. I do want to, so for any of you who just came for the headline, that's the headline, and you don't have to stick around for the whole video. But I do want to actually read a couple sections of this that I found really interesting. It's just nice to see the court actually put things into its own words sometimes so that it's very clear to us who oftentimes wonder whether the court truly understands the issues that are at play with respect to Scientology. And there was just some sections of this thing that as I was reading them, I was like, you know what? It's so nice to see how the court has described some of these allegations and the context of them. So let me find it real quick. They go through painstaking detail of all of the trouble that the plaintiff's attorneys have gone through to serve Miscavige over the last 10 months. This one's a little interesting. Let's take a look at this for a moment here. This isn't what I was looking for, but let's take a look at this. Plaintiffs allege that Miscavige is a resident of Clearwater, Florida, who is concealing his whereabouts. In response, Miscavige provided the affidavits of Warren McShane and Sarah Heller, who averred, I can't say I've ever seen that word before, that Miscavige's residence and primary place of business are in California, not Florida. At the hearing, plaintiff's counsel conceded that Miscavige may be, geez Louises. Sorry, guys. This is why sometimes it's better not to do a live video and to do a nice, tight, edited video. But you know what? We're doing the best that we can. Okay. conceded that Miscavige may be a resident of California and that the allegation that Miscavige is a resident of Florida was based on information plaintiffs were able to surmise from their own investigation into the facts surrounding his whereabouts. So, okay, that's not exactly what I was looking for. But I guess the main point I wanted to take away from that quote was this order to consider him served through the Secretary of the State of Florida stands, even given the fact that Miscavige may be, and I believe is, in fact, a resident of California. So the court does acknowledge that, and yet it still found that they were going to rule him served through the Secretary of the State. Okay. Let's see. Okay, yeah, this is what I wanted to read for you guys. Now let me zoom in on it without accidentally leaving the page. Okay. Finally, the court finds that the allegations of the amended complaint arise out of an operation connected with or incidental to Miscavige's business or business venture in Florida. Miscavige argues that plaintiffs have failed to allege that his business ties are connected to their cause of action, and that their own allegations make plain that the conduct complained of occurred outside of Florida. This reads the amended complaint too narrowly. Plaintiffs specifically allege that the defendants, including Miscavige, knowingly obtained valuable benefits, including but not limited to financial enrichment, free labor and services like construction work, landscaping, and food preparation at Flag Base in Clearwater, Florida, and aboard the Freewinds. Okay. It does always irk me a little bit when these official entities like the courts and whatever, they slightly misuse Scientology nomenclature and syntax. Like you would never say flag base, you would say flag, or you would say the flag land base. But Scientology is it's already hard for Scientologists to keep up with the nomenclature and everything. You wouldn't expect a judge who's never really had any exposure to it to know that kind of stuff. Okay, it continues. For example, plaintiff Gawain Baxter alleges that as a child, he was forced to provide 5 to 10 hours a day of unpaid work at Flag Base in Clearwater, Florida, including food preparation, trash removal, landscaping, and clerical work. Plaintiff Valeska Paris further alleges that at age 15, she worked 16-hour days, preparing food, doing laundry, cleaning offices, and serving as a personal assistant to Scientology executives, including David Miscavige, at the Commodore's Messenger Org at defendants Flag Base in Clearwater, Florida. Rather than being confined to conduct outside of Florida, plaintiffs allege that defendants' operations, both inside and outside of Florida, were sustained by and defendants profited from the labor plaintiffs allegedly performed, both inside and outside of the state. Miscavige is alleged to direct and control these operations at a considerable level of detail. Continuing on. With respect to plaintiffs' treatment on board the Freewinds, plaintiffs further allege that there is a U.S. office for the Freewinds in FSSO's primary business location in Clearwater, Florida. FSSO and Freewinds can be used interchangeably. FSSO, again, is Flagship Service Organization. That is another word for the Freewinds. Okay, and that CSI, Church of Scientology International, and Miscavige control a number of trusts, including the Flagship Trust, which, among other things, owns the company that owns the Freewinds. Thus, the court finds that plaintiffs allege a sufficient nexus or connection between the business that is conducted in... All right. There we go. And there we go. And there we go. That is conducted in Florida and the cause of the alleged action. And that plaintiff's cause of action, therefore, arises out of an operation connected with or incidental to Miscavige's business or business ventures in Florida. And here we go. One more time here for those in the back. Accordingly, the court finds that plaintiffs have satisfied the jurisdictional prerequisites under section 48.181 necessary to effectuate substitute service on Miscavige through the Florida Secretary of State. Okay. And okay, and then it basically goes on to address Miscavige's complaint that they didn't follow the correct procedure through the Secretary of State, and she basically smacks him down on that one. And then okay. Okay, so then we have a section here on default. So for those of you who may not remember, so what the plaintiff's attorneys, the motion that they had filed with the court originally regarding the subject of ruling Miscavige served is they had asked the court to rule that, one, he had been served, and two, that he was in default. Now, my understanding is that ruling Miscavige in default would mean essentially it would rule that he's lost the case. This is a civil case. It would be a ruling that he has lost the case by failing to show up and defend himself in the case. And everyone I've spoken to, any professionals I've spoken to about this particular case and the chances of him being ruled in default has acknowledged that that's basically, you could almost consider that a negotiation tactic on the side of the plaintiff's attorneys. The chance of ruling Miscavige in default was always slim to non-existent. And so that is what this means here. When they decline, when the judge declines to rule that he is in default, that is what this is referring to. So it's basically like, no, we're not going to rule that he's in default. We're just going to rule that he's been served, and now he has to answer up for himself. So having found that Miscavige has been served with process pursuant to section 48.161, the court declines to enter default against Miscavige. Rather, Miscavige is deemed to have been properly served as of the date of this order, and therefore has 21 days to answer or otherwise respond to the amended complaint pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 12. And just for good measure, we'll take a quick look over here at the actual like summary of the whole thing here. Plaintiff's motion for order declaring defendant Miscavige served with process and in default is granted in part and denied in part. Miscavige is deemed to have been properly served with the amended complaint through substitute service on the Florida Secretary of State pursuant to Plaintiff's request to declare Miscavige in default is denied. Miscavige shall answer or otherwise respond to the amended complaint within 21 days. Happy Valentine's Day, Dave. Wow. And yeah, so this was just released today. I had said in some of my earlier videos that I thought this might, assuming that this day was eventually going to come, that he was going to be ruled served in this case. I thought it might actually be the first time he'd ever officially been served, but I was wrong about that. There have been earlier cases, more than one case actually, but the one in particular that I'm thinking of, when Scientology files a civil lawsuit against someone else and they are considered the aggressor and not the defendant. There was a case where they were suing someone for something having to do with a breach of the confidentiality of the upper OT levels. And Miscavige not only was served, he was actually deposed. And you can see a transcript of that deposition online. And I am going to try to organize a reenactment of the deposition because it is hilarious. I don't remember who the attorneys were that were deposing Miscavige, but they kept calling him Captain Miscavige. And I'm not sure if they were doing that specifically because they knew it would drive him crazy and be insulting to him. David Miscavige has a rank in Scientology Sea organization of captain. And so on the surface, you could see maybe a justification for calling him Captain Miscavige, but nobody in the Sea organization is referred to by their rank. You don't call someone by their rank. You don't. No one ever refers to captain David Miscavige as Captain or Captain Miscavige or anything. I refer to him as Mr. Miscavige or Sir or COB, which stands for Chairman of the Board. And yet for some reason, the attorney kept calling him Captain Miscavige. And every time he did, Miscavige's attorney would throw a fit. And this went on. And it is so funny. The entire deposition is so funny. I'm going to try to get me and Mark Headley and Mike Rinder and maybe Claire Headley and a whole cast of characters to do a whole reenactment of this thing. And if I can't get anybody else to do it with me, I will figure out how to record a reenactment where I try to play all of the parts. So, and by the way, the fact that, so when Scientology is sued by someone, it's easy for them to try to keep Miscavige from being deposed because they're on defense. They're like, oh, these people are just suing Scientology to harass us. They just want to depose the leader. And it's much easier to protect Miscavige from deposition when Scientology is the one being sued. Not so much when Scientology is the one suing someone else. The fact that preventing Miscavige from being deposed is so high on the priority list for the institution of Scientology is one of the reasons Scientology doesn't sue people anymore. Scientology hasn't sued any media organizations ever since the 1993 lawsuit against Time Magazine. Most Scientologists think that Scientology actually won that lawsuit against Time Magazine. In fact, they did not win. Scientology lost that lawsuit. Scientology hasn't sued a media organization since then. Scientology also hasn't sued any individuals for close to 25 years now. And the only exception was for about 16 minutes, they tried to sue former Sea Org member Debbie Cook for a breach of confidentiality agreements. And they never even made it to court. They filed like some emergency injunction against her. And then 10 days later, they had a hearing about the injunction. And Debbie Cook got on the stand for like 2 days testifying about David Miscavige's behavior, and Scientology just threw millions of dollars at her to please go away and stop talking. So the only time they've tried to sue somebody in 25 years went horribly, horribly wrong for them. So between that, the fact that that did not go well for them, combined with the fact that one of the times before that Scientology tried to sue somebody, David Miscavige personally ended up being deposed. That did not go well for them. That is collectively part of the reason Scientology doesn't sue anybody anymore. And that is why this news right now is so exciting, in my opinion, is we may have a lot of hurdles to clear between where we are right now and David Miscavige actually getting deposed, but we're at least in the race. That is at least, the race that is being run is, it's just a matter of time. Actually, so the next big hurdle in this case is whether the Judge Thomas Barber, federal district judge here in Tampa, is going to rule that this case can actually move forward in the court system itself, as opposed to being sidetracked off into Scientology's own internal quote unquote religious arbitration. That's really just a BS kangaroo court. And there was an update on that in that regard just a day or two ago that I didn't do a video about, which is Judge Thomas Barber basically came back and said, okay, I've reviewed everything from the hearing, everything from the plaintiffs, everything from the defendants, and my decision is you guys haven't given me enough information, which is remarkable. It's pretty remarkable. The judge basically said, you guys, I need you each to give me like a fresh 10-page argument from the plaintiff side. I need you to like real tight and concise here. Please explain to me why you're saying your arbitration agreements were signed under duress. And to Scientology's attorneys, please explain to me your argument for why I'm not even allowed to make a decision about the enforceability of these arbitration agreements. And that's where we're at. And believe it or not, the judge coming back and asking that tends to be a positive indicator in the favor of the plaintiffs, because there's actually already some legal precedent. And I just mean precedent as far as prior legal decisions. I know that not all legal decisions rise to the level of actually being a precedent, but what do I know, guys? I grew up in a cult. I'm just saying there are some previous decisions that Judge Thomas Barber could easily fall back on if he wanted to, for why this case would be sent to Scientology's internal arbitration instead of being allowed to move forward in the courts. And the fact that there's already been an entire hearing on this matter, and the judge has already had over a month to consider this matter, and he's actually asking for more information, that tends, you never know how these things are going to go, but it tends to favor the plaintiffs. So what a week of great news, guys. I mean, yesterday I won my SmackDown against Hulk Hogan and his fraudulent copyright claim against me. And today, Judge Juliet Sneed smacked down David Miscavige. I mean, what a fantastic week. What a bad week to be David Miscavige. And yeah, Dave, happy Valentine's Day. All right, everybody. So that's all I've got on this for now. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Thanks to everybody who watches until the very end, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.